What's up, man?
Yo, what's up, dude?
How are you?
Good. How about yourself?
Good. Thanks for doing this.
Yeah, thank you guys for having me.
Yeah, for sure. You got the Stars and Stripes ride today, huh?
Yeah, two of two. We had one in Houston on Saturday that brought out a good crew. That's where I'm originally from. And then Austin is now my new home, so they're throwing a big one there. Apparently, it's gonna be they're like photographers out, a couple police motos, and maybe slow bikes. So it's gonna be. There is a
Yeah.
lot of hype going into this. Okay, cool. Let's do
Dude,
it.
might as well celebrate. It's a good thing,
Exactly,
you
exactly.
know? So,
Yeah.
how long you been in Austin for, and when were you in Houston?
So I've lived in Houston. I grew up in Houston, so I've been there since I was 18. I'm now 20. So I moved right when I jumped into college at UT.
Okay.
And yeah, then I kind
So
of
the family's still in Houston.
exactly, yes. So I'm down visiting. I had an off week after I came out of nationals, and so I came down here to see old friends, family, 4th of July with them and everything. So
Where does your family live downtown or like out of the city? Because I know some people
kind
that
of,
live
yeah,
there and they're always kind of complaining about the rides, like tons of stoplights. There's like
yeah.
one
I mean, my
rectangular
best,
route that people
yeah,
ride. Is that okay? So that's the one.
yeah. It is a hard place to ride. That's why my form when I moved out of Houston went from here to just because you could actually stay on the pedals for more than 5 minutes at a time. So,
Dude,
uh,
it's really good to hear that because so I work with a couple people down there. There's actually probably two or three now. And the first time this guy was like, dude, there's nowhere else to ride. I'm like, there has to be. He's like, no, man. And every ride was stop. And then I'm like, dude, stop, smash. And he's like, well, I'm at a stoplight. I want to get going again. I'm like, this sucks down there. Like there's no,
yeah,
and so, we've been
yeah.
trying. It seems like there's no way around that, I guess.
No, it's like if I ever decided to ride out of the city, I do. And like sometimes you're starting so early because heat in the summer. It would be like 2 hours. Like I do a 5 hour ride. It'd be like 2 hours of city riding, an hour of good country riding, and then 2 hours back into the city. And it's like,
Ah,
this is
man,
this is tough, but it makes you
that's
mentally you crack a lot in Houston, and so you're like, all right, my mental game is strong when you like do the beautiful countryside in five
and now
hours.
you're getting the physical game to come out being out in Austin and
Exactly.
young buck in the game. It's so sick, dude. 20 and doing some big things. But we'll get into that. We'll get into that. First off, how do you say your last name?
Burgoyne.
Burgoyne.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Real Spanish.
So first question is for everybody, who is Lucas Burgoyne?
I am an 20-year-old. I'm a 20-year-old, first of all, that was originally a runner, found cycling through actually an injury in running, and then have yet to get off the bike since. Uh, I'd say biking, eating, and sleeping is who Bourgoyne is.
That's well, there's now an Austin transplant, Kevin Gherkins, whose hashtag for a long time was KG is always eating. So you can maybe follow in his footsteps.
There we go. Kevin's a homie, so no,
Awesome.
not a
I
not a
don't know
bad.
him too well, but the times I've been around him, seems like a really great guy. And hopefully, so he's in Bentonville now, right?
Right, he's managing
Yeah.
the Meteor out there. So
Yeah. If I ever get back out that way, I got to cross pass and try and get a ride in with that guy. Um, dude, so Crit Champ, second in the road race. This is so for people who don't know, this is what the Stars and Stripes ride is all about. Tell me about that weekend, and yeah, tell me about that weekend first.
so yeah, I was fortunate enough to win a bike race, and so I walked away with the Stars and Stripes, and we have a great community support here. I get back and I had few, like dinners with sponsors and whatnot, and then all of a sudden I start getting texted, "Hey, let's do a massive ride, and you come out and lead it in the jersey." And I was like, "Oh yeah, 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 okay, yeah, sure." Like totally, like, sometimes there's just talk and then nothing comes of it. And then all of a sudden they're like, no, 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 we're gonna do this and we're gonna do it right. We're gonna get we're gonna get a police moto out of the town. Like the Austin one, they're planning to ride down through Austin has this beautiful over back shot of like the Capitol and whatnot over a bridge of water. So that's the plan, is to get all these shots going out there, do a nice 25-mile cruise, bring everyone out from your beginner to your all-star, rock star. And we've done the Houston one. It was a success. Let's say we had 80, 90 people out of there, started from Urban Bicycle Gallery in Houston, had a motorcycle photographer come out. And it was amazing, man. Like, just to see I was like, oh yeah, if we get 10 or 20 people out, super success. That'd be cool. Like one person that I motivate to get out and come together and bring together as a community, like that's a success. And then 80 or 90 showed up, and we planned it in 2 days, 2.5 days.
Yeah,
And so I was like, okay,
that's
awesome.
awesome.
It was so sick. And so now we have the Austin one today at 6:30 p.m. at the Meteor Cafe in Austin. And it is supposed to be even bigger. So I'm excited to do that.
Very cool. So tell us about the race that got you the jersey. What were you thinking going in? So you're riding for Action, and did you have any teammates? What was the game plan going into this race?
So obviously the road race was the day before. Really wanted to win the road race. Was kind of I was disappointed, not to downplay anything, but I had my teammate Colby. He's coming back on some form, and he was riding great, just hopping in moves, keeping it easy for me. The race was exceptionally easy in the road race for like 2.5 hours, and then just that paying flat course didn't allow for much. And all the big teams were just kind of staring at each other, and we had 2 guys, so we're not going to ride against a team of 8 early. And so we get into, finally it selects down, we get into a break, and I'm like, okay, this is awesome. I'm on those good legs. And just as some things feel so good one day and the moment clicks and they don't feel so good, coming 5K go, I'm like, yes, I'm gonna secure this. This is gonna be awesome. And then I just downpour of rain hits. Maybe it shocked the body or something. All of a sudden, I just start cramping out of nowhere. I go from best legs of my life. I'm like, yes, I could almost put this on lock. And then I'm like, oh no, this is going very south very quick.
Oh man.
So second in the road race happens. Very deserving national champion Sean McElroy does amazing. Then we hit the crit, and I'm bummed. Like that's the one for sure I wanted to win. And I'm like, all right, guys, like I'm telling my parents are there with me. I'm like, y'all are gonna have to, like, I'm bummed, like not super focused, right? It's coming into it. I tell my parents, like, hey, y'all are gonna have to drop me off like 10, 15 miles from the race to force me to warm up, because otherwise I'm gonna show up and be like, and it just, like, I got on the bike and
15 miles away.
15 miles away. Yeah. I rode in like 15 miles.
I love that.
Yeah. I was like dropped off in like Orange Park. Race was in Fleming, or like past Orange Park, race in Fleming Island. I'm like, okay, I feel really good, but you gotta get the head in it. The head's all that matters, right? You can like feel amazing, but if the head's not there, all of a sudden I show up and I'm like, oh man, I start seeing all the race competitors. I see the competition. I'm like, and then all of a sudden that's when the switch flipped in my head, and I'm like, I'm gonna rage today. So the flip in my I switched flipped the switch, and yeah, man, it just went better than we could have hoped to. There was I didn't want to have to deal with that team again, and fortunately enough, they were kind of, Vola was being very aggressive in the race. They had like 5 guys, so they were just popping them off, saving Sean McElroy because he's got a good sprint. And the course on paper looks super simple, 4-corner crit, but it's a 4-corner crit on a 1-lane road. So it's every corner. If you're not top 5 wheels, you're like, people are always pushing in, bunching. And so you're sprinting out of every corner essentially. So tiny lap, like almost under a K. So 0.6 of a mile. And so you're like, you do 200 turns in this crit. So I told my buddy Colby there, I was like, hey, let's I think we're going to prep for a field sprint. On paper, this looks super smooth. As soon as we started racing, 5 minutes in, I go to him, bro, this is going to be a breakaway. We have to make the break. Like this course is too hard. We started with probably 50 or 60, and 30 minutes in, it was down to like 25.
Wow.
You're just getting blitzed out of every corner. And so fortunately enough, Volo kept it really hard. Big break went. You could tell it was going to come back. It's a big, dangerous move, but you could tell it was going to come back. And right when it came back, I just absolutely floored it across as hard as I can. The Avolo's team leader guy got caught on the barrier side, boxed in. So I looked, saw him, and was like, all right, this is the time to just snap it. And I went as hard as I could for like a minute. Looked under my arm, and 7 guys on my wheel, and the main field like 20 seconds back already, which on that course is a death sentence.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's pretty sick. It was awesome.
That's awesome, dude. What makes you want the road race over the crit?
I consider myself a road racer. So that's like, that's what I wanted. I came in and I was like, this is my specialty, road races, flat, going to be a quick sprint at the end. And so it suits me. And I just, that's what I had in mind, but in all actuality, they're both, they're both huge, and winning the crit on that day was something insanely special. And, crit racing here is absolutely is huge. I think more of the road, trying to win the road race was more out of selfishness. If I could wear the jersey like across all everything I did except for a time trial, which it's okay because boy's not fast at time trials. But yeah, that may be the main reason.
Yeah, I think it's, being in the States, crits are huge. I thought it was interesting. Travis McCabe, of course, because of the whole crit beef thing, he was on this Crit Nation show, and a buddy of mine sent it to me to listen to. And really, he was just talking about how the road race is the race that people want to win. And even the guy that's running the podcast is like, well, so how do we like build up he's want to make Travis maybe feel a little better. Like, how do we build up the win that you had? He's like, no, man, you can't. Like, the road race is the race. And the guy was like, I felt it was kind of like an awkward pause because he's on this show called Crit Nation. And so, but I think that's, also I think probably you have experience in, you're already going over to Europe. You're clearly looking down the road. You're looking at things beyond being a good racer in the US. So it's probably just an innate feeling that you have, like, I'm a road racer, not just a crit guy. So.
Yeah, it's like, I'd say road racing is bigger in Europe, where I'm spending a lot of time now. And then crit racing is obviously pinnacle here in America. And so America is my home country. So to take that and be in that jersey here, means it's a huge feat in and of itself. So I say I'm disappointed, but you're still walking away with a decent weekend. So.
Yeah, man, it was like still on the podium, number 2. You're almost there. The race didn't unfold as you wanted, but that's Who would you like to? Is there any pro rider in the World Tour that you emulate, or like, man, I want to race like that dude in X amount of years?
It may be coming. It is coming. Literally on July 20th, I think one of my favorite sprinters of all time was actually Jakobsen. Before all this, just when it's come up, like it's been like he is was and will be again a top level sprinter the best sprinter in the world, I think. And he came through the ranks like we all did. Like, so he had his junior years and he was good, and then he went Conti, like I am with action, and then he made his jump in. So he had this, like, it wasn't like this Remco Evenepoel just meteoric rise, just 17 out of nowhere, demolishes everyone, and everyone is sad after they race him because you're like, oh, I'll never be a bike. I'll never be a professional. I raced him back in 2018 and I was like, wow, this sport just must not be for me anymore. And it's like, oh, wait, no, this is literally the generational talent.
There
Uh,
you go.
but yeah, man, I'd say, and he will be I'm doing Tour of Wallonie on July 20th, and I will get to race him. And that's who I look at and like, that is going to be sick.
Sick. Awesome. So let's take a step away from the racing. Let's talk about some training stuff. People are always really curious what athletes are doing. Going up to big races. What's a super open-ended question? What do you think is the most important aspect of your training?
100% being willing to work hard. It's all like, I think there is a few people that are very talented at riding bikes. And then I think the other 99% of the top level of cycling is guys willing to stick it, mental fortitude, stick it out and continue to just work very hard for very many years, because the build up of form and all the fitness you gain from year on year on year of doing those tough 25, 27, 30-hour weeks, right? I think the greatest thing I see in a lot of the cycles, yeah, some of them are, in their head sometimes, but they have this strong ability to keep grinding when everyone else stops. When the cards are down, just put your head in the sand, keep working, keep working, keep working. So I think that's it.
That's a very unique answer that I have received for this question. I love it because I think back to when I first started just doing, Cat 1 stuff here in the States. And there are always those, like you, runners that come over to the sport. There were I was in upstate New York, so a lot of good, talented riders in the Northeast. And it seemed like a lot of the random, just physically gifted people never lasted in the sport. Like they hit this level and they were maybe like the best in the Northeast or whatever. And then to go to the next level and really have to work, they were kind of like, nah, they didn't love it and they didn't want to go after it. And it was, me not being one of those people is always like, God, dude, I can't believe you have this gift and you just don't want to do the riding. But if you don't love it, you're not going to be good at it. So it makes sense.
100%.
You're talking about these big weeks. And that was actually one thing I was going to ask you about. If people go back and look at your road results, you race a lot also. You're clearly training a lot. What are you doing mentally so you're not getting burnt out from this? How do you take a break? Do you not need a break? What do you see big picture like for that?
So racing for me isn't training, right? So that's what you work really hard October to, if you live in Texas, like late January, early February, right? Because it's so warm down here. And then you get to start racing. There's a race every weekend. They're big races, right? And so at that point, like, I've made it through the 4-month stretch of these big base miles. Maybe I'm doing 28 hours or something like that for a couple of weeks, just lots of long, steady, nothing special. It's out there and you're just riding. And it's not hard. It's 200 watts. You're just putting in volume, trying to build that base. For me, racing is the best form of training. So I love like tons of race days. I wish I could race. Racing days are getting less and less every year, but you'll kind of find when you start racing a lot every year, you kind of have to get that knack back, that race smart, where you can kind of just sense what's happening before it happens. And that doesn't come without a lot of racing every year. And so that's what, like, COVID happened. We missed a year. I had an early, like off the bat, I was really hot in Texas for a little bit. COVID hits right before I'm supposed to go to do like a spring block with the national team, and then done. No racing all the way through 2020, 2021. Normally there's a big Texas calendar early, nothing. Come into Europe and I'm like, whoa, I haven't raced at all. And I'm just going out here and trying to ride hard, and this isn't working very well. And so now I've got like 15, 20 race days in the legs. And I noticed at U23 and pro road race, I started to notice okay, when this, like, I got back to my old kind of thinking, when this happens, this is going to happen. It's almost like it is like sometimes people describe it as a chess game, and it is because you have to be able to sense the moves when and before they're happening and how they're all going to come together. How I have to save energy. I am a quick kid going to the line, so I don't go up long hills very well or doing very hard long sections for a long time. So I gotta like pick and piece together where I can save the most energy on everything for sure.
Dude, this is great. I'm going to be able to forward this podcast to newer athletes. The one thing that people sometimes will say, especially when they're getting ready to do their first races, maybe even a Cat 4 that hasn't raced in a while. And I'm like, dude, you just got to go race. And then let's talk about it afterwards. They're like, but I want to know this and this. I'm like, we can talk about all this, but you don't have any race instinct yet. I'm like, well, what do you mean? I'm like, well, just go race and then we'll talk about it. And then they go race and they're like, whoa, I just learned all these things. And it's just, but then you can go 10 years later, you can be a Cat 1, and it's still like you're saying, you go to the first race of the year and you got to be like, your brain has like forgotten or needs to get a refresher on the, like
Right.
you're saying,
Right.
just these instincts. So you're talking about some big volume weeks early on, doing the base miles. What does your training shift to then? So you got, for people that don't know, he's Lago Vista, are those in February or March?
Those are all February. It's Pace Bend, Lago Vista, and then like another, like we have like the three Texas Classics. It switches out on the third one, but the two big ones are Pace Bend, Lago Vista.
So are you keying up any hard sessions before those, or are you using those races as your hard sessions? Or
Yeah.
how does the training shift as you're starting to hit these early spring races?
So it's actually shit. So this year, Lago Vista Pace Bend didn't happen. We had a race promoter come down. Actually, VeloFest 360 has been throwing these big classic style races like gravel sectors in them and just like really cool. But you go out. This season was an abnormal run in for me because I had a lot of stuff going on early season. Broke my went head on with a car. Was broke my wrist from that and was messed up for a little bit, and then just kind of getting back, rebounding, dealing with stuff, dealing with that. So I didn't have my normal, but a normal Lago, Pace Spin, VeloFest kind of year. You are still doing a lot of volume, using those races as intensity, and then I'll do Lago or Pace Spin and then ride 2 hours home. And then so it's like a 5 hour day. You get a big day in the saddle, like a Euro race. But then you still get that intensity you need to succeed at a high level. Cause the Texas races are hard, man. They're no slouch at all.
No, dude. I mean, I'll look through the results sheet. I'm like, damn, dude, there's like 20 guys that could have won that race, and there's fields of about 100 people, right? I mean,
Right.
there's, yeah, I used to have to travel. I mean, I hope people down there realize the quality of racers, the number of racers. Because when I was up in upstate New York, when you have Canada right above you, our races are only drawing from basically like half the geography. So we would have to travel 5 to 6 hours to get a big 80-man field. And if you don't do those, you're never going to do anything at a big race. Like I'm thinking, somebody went down to nationals one time and it was like the first time they left the local pool. And I was like, dude, that's why I'm telling you, you got to just get in the car. If you don't want to do it, it's going to be really hard to win something that you're super proud of.
Yeah.
So I look at these tech, I wanted to actually go, I mean, COVID happened, but I was trying to plan to go down to, I used to live in Memphis. And so there were some guys like Johnny Purvis, and I think Tanner Ward was going to go down and do Lago Vista and Pace Bend. And I was like, man, I got to get down there and just kick off the season early. It'd be super fun too.
Yeah.
So what's a small thing that's had a big impact in your training?
Learning. So I had this kind of big jump in the middle or kind of early when I was my 18-year-old junior year. And it was I was racing with Elevate. I was still a junior at the time, so I wasn't technically on the pro team yet, but they were kind of like grooming me into it. So I would, when they had non-UCI races, if they didn't fill a roster, they would pull me up into the bigger races. So I did Redlands, and I thought I was going really well, and then I just got torched there, and I was like, bro, how am I? What? I'm so confused. I've been training well, looking good. And then I go on Strava and I'm like, well, I'm doing 10 to 12 hours a week. And all these guys are doing 22 to 25 to 28. And I was like, what if I just start training 20 hours? What if I do that? So I'm coming towards the end of the school year, start riding a bunch. And then that is when the narrative shifted. Just that like for a cat one cyclist, that 20-hour mark, you do that, you're gonna be one of the best in your area, no doubt, maybe the best, and then on to the national level. And that's all of a sudden I went to San Dimas, won a stage of San Dimas, and then went to Joe Martin and went 2 2 2 2 or something like that. And then Nations Cup races, was picking off wins for the national team in like Canada and South Korea. And that's when it's one minor tweak. One, just train a little more. just work a little bit harder, commit, and you can do some miraculous things that you never thought.
And I think to somebody listening out there that, okay, so maybe they're doing 12 hours. I'm like, well, I can't do 20. I always tell people, do the math of what adding 1 hour a week is. So to like Betsy, who's doing 8 hours, I'm like, if you go to 9, that's a 12.5% increase by literally finding 1 hour a week. Tell me you're not going to get crazy faster by increasing your training over 10%. Like, it's just, yeah, it's just trying to find and make the time. Like, forget finding it. You got to make the time if you want to make it.
It's like when you think of it in that relation, it's like, all right, if I'm training, 10 hours a week and I do it for 3 weeks, or I'm doing 15 hours a week and I do it for 3 weeks straight. And now I'm like, oh, I'll do 20. You're now essentially doing 4 weeks of those 15 hours, right? You're like a week ahead of yourself. So if you just keep doing that and you keep getting a week farther and farther and farther ahead of yourself, how much better are you gonna get?
Yeah.
You're gonna get so much better. It's easy.
So how would you break down, and we don't have to get super granular, but like on a rough sense, how would you break down a 20-hour week in terms of like easy riding or endurance riding or intensity? And let's say it's not a race week.
Okay. I would say you would do 2 big days, anywhere from 4 to 5 hours, just endurance. For me, an endurance ride is, just steady state, and then a couple big sprints at the end. That's an easy endurance day. And then you're going to have probably 2 to 3 recovery, or probably 2 recovery rides in there, one day off. Recovery rides are hour and a half. So now you're at 13 hours. And then the other 3 days are probably one really hard interval day, one like tempo interval day. And then the last one is probably just another like endurance sprint ride, just to wind up, keep the snap in the legs.
So is that why you add those sprints at the end of the long ride, just to keep the legs ticking
Exactly.
over?
Yeah. I mean, it's just like, you practice something a million times, eventually you get really good at it. So I started a long time doing sprints at the end of every ride, because I thought that was what I wanted to do. And then all of a sudden I put on like 20 or 30 pounds of muscle, and I was like, okay, yeah, I can go really fast.
There you go.
The mindset met the body in the middle, and I was like, okay, now
What do you have any for your hard days? Do you have any favorite sessions? Or I get really bad at asking 2 questions at once, but I'm gonna do it. Any favorite sessions, or any sessions that like you had nationals coming up, anything that week that you're like, oh yeah, I feel good?
So a nationals prep looked like I did this. It would be either a 5 or 6 hour ride, warm up 30 minutes on the front end, 30 minutes on the back end, and pretty much I just simulated ProNat's course, where I would do 20 minutes like at like endurance, so like 230, 240, and then I do a 2-minute interval at anywhere from 420 to 520. And I would just, I'd hit a hill, smash, and then just repeat for 5 hours. So it's pretty simple. But that was the workout. Like, okay, I've simulated pronats. My body knows how it's going to react, what it has to do, the load it has to do. And that was pretty staple. Now, that's not my favorite workout, but that is how you train you want to do well in a race, simulate the race. Your body needs to know what's up. And so if it's a big one day like that, you have and you have tons of training time, take a day, take 2 days to prepare your body, bring it to that, like, no, set its expectations of how hard it's going to be.
What would you do for a race that's not where the course is not going to dig pro nats? You know, it's going to be this 2-minute climb every time.
Right.
What about a road race? It's going to be rolling terrain. You could be in the break. You could have, you know, a million different things could happen. Are you going to move away from an event specific type thing, or are you just going to guess, hey, I hope it plays out this way? And I mean, you obviously can't guess every permutation of what a race is going to be like. How would you approach that?
So that goes into my favorite workout. It's me, and it just depends on where I am. If I'm in Spain, a lot of times my teammate and buddy Sam Janish will go out, and like every climb we hit, I'm just gonna rip. It doesn't matter if it's 30 minutes or it's 5 minutes, and he's lighter than me, he's strong. So on the 5-minute climbs, I'll gas him and he'll just be hanging on for dear life. And then on the 30-minute climbs, he'll gas me. And it's perfect, right? Because you get that full unfettered range. And then sometimes we'll go out and we'll like do really hard, like, you know, maybe go at like 340 for 20 minutes. And then the last 2 minutes, just VO2, trying to drop each other just as hard as we can. And then we do that for like 3-4 hours, and we come back, and there's this 1-minute hill, like, you know, 20% straight up. So you're doing so much power and not going anywhere. And we just hit this loop. It had a little loop, and it's like, you know, probably 3 minutes, 1 minute, and then 2 minutes down and back around. And it would just be like, we'd do 1 minute repeats at anywhere from 700 to 800 watts. And the body, it just, first time, oh my God, lactic acid everywhere. Second time, all right, I'm barely being able to pedal now, gonna just coast back around. And then the third time, you just fully crack, and there's a video of me just laying on the ground after this workout. It's Sam saying, and we're just like, what just happened?
Yeah, that sounds brutal.
Yeah, but those are the days that make you better, and you not even feel like you're working because you're just racing your bro and having fun.
Dude, I miss having a training partner. When I lived in Nashville, shout out to my buddy Patrick. We were, you know, when you have that rider that's even with you overall, but like exactly like you're explaining, but they're a little bit better at one thing, you're better at the other thing. It's just such an amazing dynamic, and it just really, it pushes you in your weakness. Like, you having that carrot is just such a big motivator.
Yeah.
All right, everybody, that's the first part with Lucas. Make sure you come back later this week to hear part 2, where he talks about habits, nutrition, training and racing nutrition, some mango coconut deliciousness, tech, what tire size you might die on in high-level crits, and his biggest goal race, and a few more top tips from the U23 National Crit Champ. Lucas, thanks, man. Talk to you guys soon. Have a great start to the week with your training and possibly racing.